Welcome to the Flow State podcast. I am Flow State founder and managing director, Stuart P. Turner. In this 5-episode mini-series, we're talking about the implications of AI, cutting through the hype to talk about real-world use cases, real examples, and what it means to people in their day-to-day jobs. Welcome to the show, Eve. Thanks for coming on. I was trying to do like a short intro, but as you're a woman with many accolades and feathers in your cap, it was hard to summarize. But most recently, you're a published author, growth expert, a fellow expat, but over in Colorado. Is there anything else that you want to call out from your expansive career that you think is important for people to know?
I think that another one I could probably add to that. So recently I got invited by the State Department, and I'll be representing the U.S. government to go to Bulgaria.
Wow!
To basically do some economic development exchange.
Amazing.
So I'll be heading over there in September, and pretty exciting. And I just had a meeting this morning. Actually, it sounds like I'll be doing a couple classes in Bulgaria as well. So possibly one entrepreneur institute, and another one is possibly like a college environment.
Wow, that'll be amazing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, really, really looking forward to it. And believe it or not, it's actually my first time to go to Europe. So really looking forward to it.
Oh, that'll be amazing. I hope you got some travel time and some, sort of personal time to go and see the country as well.
I hope so, but we'll see, because I also have a lot on the back in Colorado here, so I'll be pretty tight in terms of time, and I need to get back home pretty soon.
I like it. Just keeping busy, Eve. That's the way forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And did I tell you I'm also writing my second book now? Then
you didn't actually know. How's that been going?
Oh, okay. So that second book is actually going to be interesting. It's going to focus on growth product management, which is another buzzword that is starting to become pretty popular lately. And so really it's teaching a product manager to step to the next level and really focus on strategic components of product management, product development side of things. So I'm kind of like a third way through the book, and working with a publisher this time. So
wow,
totally different ball games. They certainly know what they're doing.
Have they been putting the pressure on a little bit?
A little bit more pressure, that's for sure. I can't really do it on my own term this time.
Well, look, that's actually quite a good segue, because I've actually started reading your first book, which I'm finding very interesting so far. And given that we're kind of loosely here to talk about, AI and the general implications, I've kind of taken, from what I've read so far, I've taken away there's a very sort of human focus from your first book. So are you, now that you're into the second, like how do you feel about the explosion of AI tools within the context of what you've written and the things that you've kind of created and recommend in your books?
Yeah, I think artificial intelligence, it really becomes the enter the mainstream lately, right? Especially after ChatGPT, OpenAI launched their platform, right? And then you start hearing about obviously Bach is trying to, actually they've been working on that for a number of years now. Then just a little bit slow to market, but I'm sure that is, coming out with very competitive products on Google as well. But, AI has really been around for a long time. I don't know, if your audience know about the backgrounds. And I think it traces all the way back to 1951. And AI was invented, but in UK. I think that's where you come from, right?
It sure is. Where all the best stuff comes from, Eve.
Yeah, and without a doubt, and a lot of really innovative, truly revolutionary technology come from the UK market, and so it has been around, and it certainly has tons of implication, just like social medias and internet, and there's always pros and cons to it, right? And depending how you use it, how you view it, and you can go either way. You can go down really negative, and you can go also become really positive and empower humans, and to do our jobs better, and just focus us on the where we can really add value that machine cannot do it. So I personally, you read my book, and my book is really more strategic, and it's a really I position that as a mini MBA book for marketers, and really get marketers to think beyond their functional role and
Mm,
start thinking about how their job matters in the broader sense, in the 10 elements that I spoke about with the revenue generation, the value chain, and it goes into like your process, your structures, and also technologies that be components. Starting to really think like a general manager instead
mm.
of functional marketing, about campaign, about go to market awareness, and those kind of tactical strategies. So yeah, I guess I did mention a little bit, about AI, not to any depth whatsoever in my first book. But it is, in this context of when AI, exploding, that book is written, right? And also, the book is written really during pandemic as well.
Yeah.
And pandemic also became a catalyst, really pushing digital transformation to another level. And also giving a lot of companies an opportunity to test out, we actually can do it virtually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of tasks can be performed that way. And so it has good and bad. And I know some companies trying to bring people back to the office. Um, Again, that AI technology, I guess that can help out with marketers. Given that, and you and I both are marketers, we can leverage that technology to do our jobs, both in person, both remotely, and to really elevate the productivity side of things, and even that increasing the accuracy, because machine, really has less errors. Humans, we can make a lot more mistakes than machine
Yeah.
if we train them accurately, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but having said that, my first book really is that managerial concept, and also really teaching marketers with that growth mindset. It is a valuable in a way that if we looking at AIs from the negative component. I think first thing, a lot of people are thinking that, oh no, it's gonna take my job, right?
Yeah.
But
There's
if you look
definitely
at
been a
my
lot of that.
yeah, but that's what humans, what we're really good at is continue to strive for excellence, continue to improve ourselves, right? And my book really is trying to challenge marketers to think strategically. And that is something that, if we can jump to the next level, you don't need to be scared about artificial intelligence. In fact, it can enhance your day-to-day execution of your strategy.
I totally agree with you. I think there's a lot of, I guess you would say, like tactical panic about the, the impact currently. Maybe because people don't really fully understand how it can or can't be leveraged, or maybe they just haven't really been keeping up with, with the times and technology available. But I think the point you just made about efficiency and reducing errors is a really interesting one, because I'm sure you're aware as well. There's a lot of wasted time and money in marketing for various reasons across various different areas. So I guess, not to put you on the spot too much, Eve, but if you were going to pick sort of your top three areas where you think that but based on the principles you put forward in the book, like where do you think the best kind of use of these kind of generative tools or models is for a marketer, like right now, that you could just say, okay, if I was going to do these three things tomorrow, they would really make a difference? Do you have anything that's your kind of current go-to?
Um, right. I think the biggest adoption when AI went mainstream is the content generation side of things, right? So
Yeah, okay.
whether it's text format or imageries, or yeah, AI has really produced this powerful machine that it can really do things, I don't know, probably 100 times faster, right? And more accurate, and more professional as well.
Mm,
And so, but having said that, if I was to apply down to the one of the areas, I talk about know your customer. So that is not one of the 10 elements that I focus on in the revenue generation value chain. So using machine, to develop content, but ultimately, you still need to have that strategic, elements in place to really understand who is your ideal customer,
Mm.
and what do they look like, and B2C and B2B very, very different, in terms of how do you go about to craft that persona profile, and their buyer journeys as well, and get to the point that AI will be super powerful if you apply once you have the strategy in place, and then you can use AI to do those research, as well as getting to predictive learning, and then
Yeah.
really to get improve your customer persona, and to get to really accurate level in a very short space of time.
Yeah.
And also that marketers, I don't need to mention anymore, but we all kind of challenged with time. When I was in-house marketers, I'm basically, being brought in to do three person's job.
Mm.
So that,
Which is typically the way, right? You're kind of brought in for one job that turns into many. Yeah.
that's correct. Yeah. So, but AI, really help that in that context. You can actually some of the, I guess, in more lower, skill levels, and more kind of repetitive, and you can actually, count down the AI to do things better than you can.
Mm.
So I think the combination is really powerful. Any marketers, jump into that, to really using AI technology to really get your customer profile to more accurate levels, and then using AI to generate appropriate content along that buyer journey. I think it is absolutely a positive and a very powerful tool, right?
Yeah.
And then if I look at analytic point of views, and there are now that marketing attribution platforms out there, and again that AI has that ability to get into that predictive stage, right?
Mm.
So a lot of the platform, actually, I just recorded another podcast with my show, and with an expert on data, and
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so in they have he's a co-founders of a marketing attribution platform called Caliber Mind,
Mm.
and they started to building, looking into AI, how would that actually apply with marketing attribution, and how can they, because marketing
It's
at
like
data
the
and
holy grail, right? Getting to the dream picture of how everything comes together.
100%, and data, is it really is a skill of science, but at the same time, analytics, in marketing context, is never accurate. If you tell people it's all the data is gonna pinpoint down to the exact result that you're expecting,
Yeah.
um, I think that's exaggeration. So and true data scientists will tell you exactly that, and it is never gonna be accurate, right?
Yeah.
So it is a combination of art and science. So, but with now that a lot of I guess the data scientists starting to explore the rounds of artificial intelligence, how to leverage that into their platform to really optimize that accuracy. So that is all coming, and a lot of
Yeah.
people are out there developing those technology right now. And so we'll see. I think from that point of view, it'll also become extremely powerful and really enhancing the value of marketers. Because I think the days not being able to justify the value of your spend is gone.
Yeah.
So all marketers required by the demand from the C level suite, CEOs, COO, CFO, for marketers to justify, why should you be spending, so much funds, right? And what is the result we are getting? And how can you prove that is a direct result of your marketing effort? All of that.
Yeah.
So AI can become a really powerful friend, to add to that equation as well. Um,
Yeah. I think that's a lovely way of characterizing it, actually. And I think this is also the bit that I'm probably the most excited about, because it's interesting to hear you talk through that. Just the whole, obviously being like a relatively technically minded person, like you would have seen as well over your career, like the rise of the fact that as marketers, and to your point, to be properly strategic in marketing, you need to be across technology. Like, you don't need to know all the details and how everything
Yeah.
works, but
Right.
you get, in my opinion, you cannot be an effective marketing person and speak to all of those things that you just spoke about without having a good grasp of like how all these pieces go together.
100%.
And it would be great. I was chatting to someone like last time we recorded a session about this, about how, if you had, as you said, your AI friend who can be like, look, there's a million options for every single use case. So you could be like, which is the best, thing to use for, as you said, marketing attribution. Like, how do I tie all these platforms together? Because that is a nightmare problem that nobody, I don't think, has solved currently. So
Yeah.
I actually think that would be super exciting, and I think it's quite a good time, or as good a time as any, I guess, to be coming into marketing, or to be a
Yeah.
senior marketer and in command of money, and be able to say, look, like, we want to spend our budget on these things, and then our 10% testing is actually going to be on something that's genuinely sort of drives digital transformation, instead of
Yep.
just like, let's throw all our money at media and do an event, which is this sort of simple old school approach, right?
100%. 100%. 100%. And both in acquisition and retention, AI can, play a very, very significant role. The chatbot has been around for a long time, right? It's a, I would say it's an old technology now, but that is
Yeah,
an AI technology. And if it's executed well, and you can actually deliver better customer service. And if you're a startup strapped with resources, right? It is a really powerful tool,
yeah,
to help your customer to answer a ton of things that they can, the robots can answer, right? So yeah, from technology, one of the elements is about technology. The downside is obviously, for marketers, there's enough technology out there already, just like you said, to understand now
yeah,
more platforms and more tech is gonna be boggling for a lot of marketers.
yeah. And look, I think that's you kind of zooming in on a current challenge that I've found. I'm sure you're the same over in the US, where every platform that I have ever used now has the letters AI on its website. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, I saw like Zoom Info are trying to pitch themselves as like an AI platform. There's like, random CRMs who are like, hey, we're launching AI. Miro is like got some kind of AI for like, I don't even know what it does, like drawing boards or something more effectively. And I'm like, you don't, I know everyone likes to stay on trend, but it just seems a bit like everybody's making my life a bit harder now, because I know that a lot of this stuff is not AI. As you've said, it's probably just, either just effective sort of automation in the platform, or just some just basic process automation that I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just think it's a bit annoying that they're all trying to label it as some kind of next level evolution of their
yeah,
platforms, when I know that it isn't, because I'm deep in them. But to the average person, it would seem that AI is now everywhere, when it sort of isn't really, I think. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? If you're in a much bigger market than I am, how is it over there? Like, you seeing the same thing?
yeah. No, that's a really good point. I think it's just like a Web 2.0, right? When it came,
Yeah,
you know, everybody's
yeah,
jumping onto that bandwagons. And it is a buzzword now. And even with my podcast, almost every episode I will add a bit of an AI component into it. And but other than that, the whether is a legitimate artificial intelligence, the bigger question and the more important question I will ask is that really helpful?
yeah,
That particular
yeah,
technology, even that is really having that, the technology has, leveraged the artificial intelligence, but what is the outcome? What is it really, this piece of technology driving towards to? Is that
mm,
really, improving your customer experience? Is that really improving your productivity? What is it, you're trying to achieve? So I think that is a far more important question to ask, when a company or a person is looking at adopting a piece of technology. Don't get just kind of like excited about the buzzwords. still, always go back to that strategic components. AI is there to perform a certain function,
Yeah.
to really help out with, really whether it's like process optimization or, to really improving that productivity or customer engagement. So, understand that, what are you trying to solve? The problem
Yeah.
you're trying to solve. And then before you jump into a technology, assessment. So having that framework, what is the problem you're solving? And then what type of technology might be useful? You might not even need AI, to be honest, to solve some of the issues.
Yeah, look, I think that's actually a really good point. Is like, because obviously, as you say, as marketers, everyone gets quite excited about new stuff, which is great. But I've been listening to a lot of like Hard Fork, one of my other favorite podcasts recently. So if you guys are listening, it's amazing. But they talked about a lot of very real world application stuff that people have been doing with a lot of these generative models. So they talked a lot about ChatGPT
Yeah.
a few episodes ago, and how people were using that to like plan their meals or build shopping lists, and how they can, buy the best priced ingredients and where to get them from and stuff, which I thought was really cool
Wow.
because I
That's cool.
I was
Yeah.
getting carried away with like, how do I do exactly as you said? How can I do customer analysis with this, which is obviously very specific to my yours and my use case. But on a recent episode, they were talking to somebody about this and about the quality of the data that these models have been trained on.
Yeah.
And this lady was saying, look, like for, you sort of basically like Western food is great. Like if it's any sort of, generic-y Western type dish is really good. But I think she was trying to get it to put together a recipe for it was either a Thai curry or some sort of Asian themed food. And she was like, Chat's idea of like, I think it was Thai, is like, throw some coconut milk and like some, I think maybe it was an Indian one. I think she was talking about garam masala. So she was like, it's a pretty bland kind of effort at, that type of cuisine, which obviously speaks to, as you said, the kind of quality of the data and the use cases. But
Yeah.
are you kind of concerned about the fact that a lot of these models have been trained on a sort of very specific set of data that it's not super inclusive necessarily? Like in that, are you seeing any issues around that, or any potential pitfalls that could cause?
Yeah, 100%. Like, the machine, they have to take, the data. They have to actually learn based on the data you feed them, right? And like using your example, like, the machine is not gonna know how it really tastes like, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you can come up with, really, bogus, really, to be honest,
Yeah.
language. But, at the moment, like when ChatGPT was launched, and it's not particularly very good at, factual research.
Yeah.
And, based on histories or people data. And I have one of the hats that I wear is, nonprofit. And so that is a volunteering work. I help out when I have time, right? And so, I have this like content I have to write about, it's kind of similar to like Human of New York's type of storytelling.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I punching, to ChatGPT and trying to research. At that time, I wasn't very aware about it. I guess the deficiency of a ChatGPT. So I just, punching in, asking ChatGPT to write me a bio about this personality who is a Australian pro tennis player. And it spit out a beautifully written article about this person, even to the point that, how she was inspired by her fathers, and how much she was taking home in earnings, and all the competitions she won.
Wow.
And because I didn't fact check the ChatGPT, which is a big mistake, right? I should have done that. And
Yeah.
so I sent it to the person, who is the tennis player. She said, "This is absolutely amazing. I wish that's me."
It's like the
So
most
that's pretty
wonderful
embarrassing. But
fictional write-up there.
this so, so like that's the rookie mistake I made, right? And I was just like, I was pretty upfront. I was just, I don't have time, so I feed that into ChatGPT. there you go. ChatGPT think really highly of you.
Well, look, I think that's a perfect example. Though, is like obviously, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much, Eve, because I think perhaps to you and I, like, you would immediately think, oh, well, it is a bit of a rookie error not to fact check. But then most people probably do just trust what comes out of there, right? They're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, it must be finding facts from somewhere, not realizing
Yep.
that it's been trained on just whatever people have put on the internet, which, is we would know, is not necessarily accurate in any way from the
Yeah.
years of content going on there.
Yeah, like people say ChatGPT can even write you a book, right? And but the
Yeah,
challenge is, it doesn't have any reference. So it's I'm sure it's all coming, right? Because now that obviously Microsoft bought ChatGPT, Google has their own Bard, and once you link out the search capability with the AI, the machine learning, the language model, right? I'm sure
yeah,
that they will get there, but at the moment it's still not quite there, right? So yeah, there's definitely I would really caution marketers, and there's tons of incidents you can Google that hiccups out there, and to the point that even litigation happening.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
believe
yeah.
that there was a law firm actually used a chat GPT and then cited the wrong case. And imagine that is
That's
horrendous.
embarrassing.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. In the court of law, right?
Well, it
And
puts your bio faux pas into good context, I think, Eve. If someone's citing that in a legal context.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, look, I think I agree with you. I think that whole, I mean, as you would well know, right? Like, fact checking is an ongoing issue for
Yeah,
anyone who spends a lot of time online. But I actually think, going back to what you were saying earlier, where I found it's been a lot more helpful is, like, we use it quite a lot, like my team and I, to do that kind of know your customer analysis, because we do a
yeah,
lot of like work on social media. So we will like pull a load of data from people that we're trying to get to know, but then we just give much smaller sets of data to like chat. We've been using this quite a lot for just to do that like fast analysis, to say, from this body of 3 months of social posts, like what were the most prevalent themes, what were people talking about the most, what sites were they linking to. For that stuff, I found it's really, really useful, because we're asking it for something very specific, and a
right.
predictive model is built for that kind of analysis, right? Like, it's just, very specific use case. Back
Yeah,
to your point, we have a very specific outcome that we want,
right.
and that saves us like hours of time, because otherwise we'd be messing around in spreadsheets and, pivoting stuff and trying to, I don't know, script something to do it.
Especially with big data, like there's no way that the humans can catch up with the machine in terms of speed, analyzing big data.
Mm,
Machine minutes, right? You'll come up with analysis, whereas humans will be days or if not weeks of amount of work.
yeah. Yeah, and that just isn't really high value time, right? I mean, it's just shuffling numbers around and trying to make something work to give you just to get you to the point that you're trying to get to, right? I think that's where it really works. But
Right.
also, you just reminded me, actually, going back to your legal point. I read a story recently about this sort of funny, sort of not, because there's obviously some tragic like mental health things going on. But in the UK, there was a guy, I think it was 2021, who thought he was in a relationship with, it was either ChatGPT or a similar model, and he was talking to it over the course of, I assume, quite a few years, and it helped him to justify a plot to go and attempt to assassinate the now late Queen with a crossbow, and he was caught breaking into one of her residences, and then all this came out after he was arrested, but. This kind of shows the slightly darker side of these models, where he obviously was using it as a way to sort of plot like this crazy attempt to murder the Queen,
Oh my
uh,
goodness.
and
Wow.
apparently that set there was a legal precedent set around it in the UK, because he was he's arrested, obviously, and that was a core component of his justification for what he was doing. But it
Yeah.
was the first kind of, similar to you, the first case I'd heard of where it had actually sort of supported a very kind of dark use case, basically.
Those are horrific cases, like we can see machine robots, that's being applied in our life, right? And real world. Um
Yeah.
and on top there's also ethical dilemmas, right? And I was helping AI companies and sitting on their boards and giving some advisories, and um yeah, like they can literally replicate someone who's alive today and bring that person into the classrooms or whatever context, right? And then students and the audience can ask that person, and it
Wow.
will, almost like answer like that person if there's
Yeah.
enough data to train that machine, right? And then they can even like bring that person alive in holograms and 3D video modelings, and you can be so realistic, right? And but what about copyright? Who owns that data?
Yeah.
We're already seeing like lawsuit in the US here. Some, AI companies that they're using certain artists, their artwork to train the machine. So there is being litigation that those artists actually take those companies to court because, again, it's a copyright issue, right? And
Yeah.
you're using my data, my content, my artwork to train this machine. Um, then I'm not getting any benefit out of it. You are
Yeah.
or not. So that is a huge open a can of worms. In terms of from ethic point of view.
I agree with you. I think this is a real sort of an area that needs probably more attention with less of the panic to me, where in both those examples where you've got like the data that these models are trained on is largely just stolen, I guess, or
Yeah,
used without permission in the most positive case. And then
yeah,
the models themselves, like, and this is obviously a broader issue online, is that there's not much of a safety net for people who are struggling, and picking up the warning signs of people who might be in like a bad kind of situation mentally themselves. Like, there's not
yeah,
really anything there. Like, I'm sure like you'd be aware as well that there's a lot of stories about how people who are either depressed or in sort of
yeah,
difficult situations, and not like they're not necessarily looked after. Like, it's very easy for them to slip under the radar as it is in normal life. So
yeah.
it's it's rare that I agree with just broad brush, we need to regulate stuff. But I think in this instance, there's a lot of justification for putting the brakes on in certain areas and just saying, look, like, as you were saying earlier, models like chat, all they do is play things back to you that you're putting in. So if you're putting in really negative things, all it's going to do is reinforce those things, right? It's like, it's there to effectively tell you what you want to hear, like the courtiers of some kind of medieval, kind of monarch, right? They're just like, oh yes, no, whatever you're saying is a great idea. Definitely do that, and that's quite dangerous, right?
Yeah, 100%. Now, there's already, platform out there using chatbots and to do counseling, right? And
Mm,
it's really, really cost effective, and the people and some, some of them. I think it's even free platforms you can actually use that to do counseling work. But it's a feedback loop. 100%. You're feeding, and then not necessarily come out the answer is gonna be helpful.
mm,
So yeah, there's definitely, we definitely need to actually take a lot of cautions in that space as well in healthcare and in space that it can actually kind of infringe like intellectual properties, and that's why a lot of companies want they forbid their employees to feed ChatGPT with any information about the company,
yeah,
sensitive data, right? And because the more you feed, the more open it becomes to your competitors, to anyone, right?
yeah, yeah. And look, like, I think yeah, as you said, I think it's an area that just requires a bit of forethought, which often people don't apply to this stuff. Because I always joke about like marketing, not really being like a real job. And I think in this, what I mean by that is within this context, it has limited, real world human impact. Like, it's hopefully no one's going to, sort of off themselves off the back of a marketing campaign, right? Whereas somebody, who is depressed, who is talking to Chat GPT about how everything's terrible in their life, like, that is a dangerous, kind of real world use case. So I think it's a tough one, right? Like, I don't know, what the solution to that problem is, but I think, yeah, we definitely need to, I guess, just think more carefully before rolling these things out to things like therapy, right? Like,
Oh,
that's a
100%.
scenario where just cutting costs is not the best way to deliver the best outcome, like, as you were saying earlier.
And a risk, right? If you think about the Nvidia's, the Omniphone, sorry, Omniverse, right? Omniverse platform, and you can, build digital twins. It's all
Mm,
artificial intelligence space, and BMW has, created a factory. the vision is that, the robot can talk to the next robot and perform all the tasks in a,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Um, but it opens another can of worms. If there is a cyber attack, it literally can shut down everything, right?
yeah,
So, companies, when they are adopting this technology, really think about the negative consequences. You will open up to the dark, internet, and then the criminals. And you need to have a contingency plan in place.
yeah.
Otherwise, it can have a really detrimental impact that you don't want.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is again an area that I don't think people are sort of fully. I mean, people in IT, I'm sure, are fully across this, but who are
Yeah.
probably just waiting to say "I told you so" at any given opportunity here. But I mean, you look at the recent, data breaches. Was it last year that Optus got hacked, and then it suddenly came out that they've been sat on loads of information that they shouldn't have been storing. Like, there's just already there isn't proper sort of procedure
Yeah.
in place for data management and sort of deprecation and stuff. So I agree with you. I think if you become a fully digitized
Yep.
business without any fallback options, then you're at a pretty big risk at the moment, I guess.
100%, 100%. AI, similar to, we went through industrial revolutions and, and then the internet and, then we have all these, social media and, have you seen the documentary Social Dilemma? And
No, actually, no. Is it worth a watch?
yeah,
Is this a good
great.
one?
It's really, really great documentary, and it talk about, these are the the people who pioneer and then really develop a social platform, and then they realize that they create a monster,
Mm,
right? There's a lot of negative social impact. A lot of these, CTOs and innovation officers, and they don't even allow their kids to go on the platform that they developed,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and right, and the AI is the same. I already funny stories, and I think it was a couple years ago, and that's when my daughter was only 8 year old, and I one day I received a phone call. I answered it, and I started talking to this person, and 2 minutes later I realized that I don't think I'm talking to a person. I
Wow.
think this is like a robot. And Alexa, those kind of machine is already available, right?
Mm.
And then I realized, and my daughter popping, and then she say that was me pranking you. So
And you were like,
she literally
thanks.
down a website and then dialing my numbers, and then I got a phone call from a robot.
Great.
And I was chatting to a robot for 2 minutes.
You've obviously taught her too well, Eve.
Well, the kids these days, right? They're so smart. They grow up in the iPhones, and they know how to swap things. And then 2 year old, my daughter is already breaking my password.
Yeah,
It's
that's
crazy,
quite
right?
concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, so then it comes. Yeah, it will force the next generation. They will become smarter. Do things that we can't fathom, we
Mm,
can't imagine. But at the same time, they will come with a lot of negative consequences for them as well.
yeah,
I think again, not just business and marketers. We need to be really, when we are using a piece of technology, think about the implication for your company, but at the same time for the broader community as well. And parents too. Parents really need to be on top of that.
yeah. Look, I think that's a really sort of interesting point to raise. Is that it's back to what you were saying about being sort of strategically minded about this stuff, and the fact that you don't need to be, you don't need to know all the ins and outs, but you need to know the potential implications,
Yep.
as you say. And I was reading another article about this because I think in the UK there's a body of universities who've all signed up to some opt-in. We should teach people how to use these generative models properly, and it just made me laugh reading it because I was thinking as I was reading it, like, is that not what you should be teaching people anyway, like to think critically about like what you're actually doing day to day. But they were like, oh no, we're going to do this now. Like, and I was obviously, as having done a philosophy degree, that was like pretty core component of everything we were doing at the time. But
Right.
yeah, it just sort of surprised me because to your point, I guess most people don't apply that level of thinking. They just kind of use
Yeah.
stuff and are like, well, it's out there, it must be fine. And I've been thinking about it a lot for obviously for my son as well, because he's got sort of at that age where he's getting into watching things online. They're doing, they use Google Classroom in school, which is a bit of a sort of dystopian thing for me. But I'm like, they've got a lot of good tools. Fair play. They're not sponsoring school yet, but I'm sure we're not far away from that. But he's curious, and I don't want to scare him off, but at the same time, I am scaring him off a bit, because I'm like, look, there's a lot of things you need to be aware of that are on the internet that you, as an enthusiastic child, just like do not understand are there behind the scenes. And
Yep.
it's been a real eye opener trying to explain that and let him explore without exposing him to stuff that I know is
Yep.
potentially very dangerous.
Oh, totally. When the what was that called, the Lensa, is that right? I might
Yeah,
be wrong with the name.
the
The facial
image
recognition, right?
AI thing. Yeah,
Yeah, everybody was using it, right? I didn't, because I don't want to give my photo away. And now that you already have, like, Australia doesn't have a severe problem, but US here, I receive scam call every day,
yeah, right.
right? There's from human-based scam call to robot calls. And now that you have artificial intelligence can imitating your family member's voice,
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty scary.
And then, really starting to staging some sort of like a ransom scenario. And that is really scary. And
Yeah,
a friend of mine actually received a call like that. And lucky that she straight away called her sister overseas. And they realized that it was a scam call. But
oh, that's
that
pretty.
voice sounds just like her sister's voice.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
So
Eh?
it is really scary. And so there is positive application. We world in a duality world, right? The black and the white, the darkness and the positive side is never going to go away. It's always gonna be coexisting.
Yeah,
So we just need to be very cautious, how we expose our personal data into feeding into those machines.
yeah. Look, I totally agree, and I think I know it's funny actually, because the worst we have to deal with down here is like Ozpost text message scams at the moment. So that makes me very happy that that's the worst thing that's going to happen. Someone's like, oh, you're receiving a parcel. Click this link, and I'm like, I know what I've ordered from the internet. Thanks. It's not that difficult to crack
Yeah.
the code there, but yeah. Look, I think that point's probably got a good one to kind of wrap on, Eve. Like that whole as you say, there's a good side and a bad side of all these things. Like it's not like one or the other. But based on kind of the area you're focusing in, what do you think is going to be the most effective, I guess, kind of step forward in the generative models or the process automation space that you think will actually be really positive and useful, as opposed to just causing loads of problems or loads of other random legal issues?
I certainly think in the rounds of B2B marketing that the customer engagement that is really, really powerful using AI to get better engagement. Because artificial intelligence, what we talk about, like you can get your customer profile a lot more accurate, and as well as the content that you develop that speaking to those persona will become more relevant, more engaging. So from customer experience point of view, I think definitely, marketer can leverage that and to improve their retention and acquisition, right?
Yeah,
So, just have to, provided that obviously the machine is being trained well, obviously. So on that note, that, I'll go back to my first point, don't ever forget about that, that strategic thinking. And also, don't forget that, end of the day, they are machines, and
yeah,
we need to actually review thoroughly of the work that's being produced as well. So I do see that is one area, within the next 12 months, I think it's going to go berserk. And
yeah, right.
I do feel like, content marketers do need to step to the next level. Machines are not very good with creativity. This is where that, content marketer need to be really strategic, instead of do the doing, and now you have powerful tool, right? You need to actually, step up to do the guiding. And also, think about like strategically, how would you engage with your customer to get a better result you want?
No, I like that, Eve. I think that's a good kind of more positive note wrap, which I like. Like, I think we're agreeing that robots aren't coming for our jobs yet, but maybe they will in the future, which is like good enough for me, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, look, Eve, thanks so much for jumping on and chatting. Like, I think we covered some like super interesting stuff there, and as usual, it's a fairly broad ranging discussion. So, really appreciate you coming on and having a chat.
No, thank you so much, Stuart, for having me. And yeah, I hope that it's all what I shared is useful for your listener.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, it was great to chat to you.
Thank you so much, Stuart.
Thank you very much for listening. This, I'm afraid, is the end of the show. Super interesting discussion with Eve. I think the point she raised about the fact that AI has been with us for quite a long time, but nobody really cared, apart from in certain niches, but it's now suddenly been pushed up to the public conscious, was pretty interesting, largely, I guess, due to the ease of use and the open source aspects. The big question that came out of it, I think, though, was, is the current tactical excitement undermining longer-term growth strategy? Question mark. Who knows? If you'd like to find out a bit more about who we are and what we do, feel free to head over to our website, theflowstate.io.